Hello everybody and welcome back to Bring Your Own Popcorn, and welcome to day number 3 of the 12 Days of Christmas, where I watch and review a Christmas film that I have never seen before. And today I'll be watching and reviewing for the first time The Santa Claus 3. So in the last video I watched The Santa Claus 2 for the first time, and I was actually fairly surprised. I didn't think it was a great film by any means, but I thought it was not too bad. It wasn't as good as the first one, but it wasn't a terrible film by any means. And I'm a bit more nervous for this one because I have since looked up reviews. I know I shouldn't have. I know I should have went into this blind, but I have since looked up reviews, and this one is really poorly reviewed. Like, really bad. However, something about me is still fairly excited. I know Martin Short's in this one, and he plays Jack Frost, and I absolutely adore Martin Short, so I'm excited for that aspect of the movie. However, if I am in the general opinion of this film, it looks like I'm in for a pretty tough watch. I don't really know anything else about the film. I don't really know the plot or anything. I just know Martin Short's in it, plays Jack Frost, and I'm going to assume it follows a similar sort of structure as the previous two Santa Claus films. So without further ado, let's watch The Santa Claus 3. Okay, so here we have The Santa Claus 3, which is also titled The Escape Clause. I didn't actually know this film had a subtitle, but the description says, "The holidays take a chaotic turn when Jack Frost puts a freeze on Christmas." It does sound fairly interesting, however, I really hate Disney Plus's synopsises. That is not telling you really anything about the film at all. But yeah, Martin Short, I think he actually looks pretty decent in the role. Looks like he's having fun. So yeah, I'm excited to get into the Santa Claus 3. So without further ado, let's watch it.
We'll call Christmas Frostmas.
The future of the holidays will be at stake.
I've done it. What have you done?
And the final chapter will begin in the greatest Santa story ever told.
I'm gonna make everything good again.
Walt Disney Pictures presents Tim Allen,
Give me a status report.
Your pants are on fire.
Yes, they are.
Martin Short,
I'm Jack Frost.
Okay, chill.
I invented chill.
Hey, Mom!
Santa Claus 3.
Okay, so I just got done watching the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, for the first time, and yeah, I do really like the original, The Santa Claus. Santa Claus 2 I thought was decent, didn't think it was great, definitely had its problems, but I thought it was a very decent follow-up, and I'd heard the Santa Claus 3 was the one that everyone hated. And you'll never guess what. I didn't like this film that much. I didn't hate it, I wouldn't go as far to say hate it, but this film had a lot of issues. Whilst the Santa Claus 2 felt like a natural progression on from the original Santa Claus, it felt like that was where the story was naturally going. In this one, they really feel like they're pushing it. They are just pulling at threads to try and keep the audience interested, and it just really isn't working. I found a lot of this film to just be bland and without character. So basically in this one, Mrs. Claus is getting a bit irritated with being in the North Pole and Santa not paying attention, blah 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 blah. Jack Frost is the villain, played by Martin Short. He comes in and he wants to basically take Santa's role. And yeah, it is pretty boring for most of the runtime. And yeah, basically Mrs. Claus's parents come to the North Pole, but they try and disguise it like Canada, and it's just a lot of jokes that are just really without a punchline. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get why this is meant to be funny. Yeah, it really feels like there didn't need to be a third one. It felt nicely concluded at number 2. It felt nicely concluded at number 1, but if they did a number 2 and it was fairly decent, this one they're just really pulling it. They're really dragging it out. There were a couple of funny bits, mostly from Martin Short, who I actually think if there was a saving grace to this movie, he's the saving grace. And there were a couple of sweet moments, especially involving Scott's, I think it's niece or stepdaughter or something like that. I think it's niece. There was a few sweet Christmas movie magic kind of moments with her in the movie, but that's all that the plot really has to offer. In terms of performances, I actually think they were pretty decent. Tim Allen is good in the role, and there is none of him being an annoying toy version of himself in this one. So, props to you, movie, for cutting out that storyline. And Martin Short is in this film, and I absolutely adore Martin Short. I think he's maybe one of my favourite comedy actors. I actually think the man can do no wrong, and even if he's in a bad movie, his presence just elevates it. He's a bit like Tim Curry, in my opinion. His presence just elevates any bad film that he's in, and that is certainly the case here. He is just so naturally funny, in my opinion, that even the bland lines he manages to twist and bring them back around to being quite funny again. You can actually tell he's having a ball on this movie. He's having such a great time playing Jack Frost, and it really just comes across on screen. Whenever Jack Frost is on screen, the movie does kind of come to life a little bit. It's just a shame they couldn't have given him better writing to complement the amount of energy he's putting into his performance. There are some really good supporting roles in this film. Alan Arkin's in the movie playing Mrs. Claus's dad, and it's actually quite nice to see him play something a bit more silly. I'm normally used to him seeing him play more serious roles, so it's interesting seeing him in a kids movie. In terms of direction, I actually think it might be the best looking of the effects in any of the films. The effects in 1 and 2 aren't great. However, in this one, they take a slight upgrade. Do not get me wrong, they still aren't good, but they do look a lot better than they do in 1 and 2. I do think the direction of the film is fairly decent. You can tell that they are trying. It's just this film didn't have a great script behind it at all. I just found myself so bored. It actually took me a few sittings to actually get all the way through this movie. I kept pausing it, being like, I just want this to be done, because it was just very, very bland. I don't think it was a terrible film. I wouldn't go as far to say it was terrible. And it did have a few redeeming qualities. Martin Short, oh, I love that man. I'm going to keep singing his praises till the day I die. But yeah, it was just a very bland, tasteless, it really felt like nothing. It is the movie equivalent of dry pasta. That is the best way I can describe this movie. And in some ways, people would consider that a lot worse than saying the film's terrible, because it really just made me feel no reaction at all, and no reaction is sometimes worse than a bad reaction. Overall, I'll give the Santa Claus 3 a 4 out of 10, and it does not get my recommendation, sadly. But that's just my opinion. Please let me know down in the comments what you think of the Santa Claus 3. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's just alright? I love to read your comments, and I try and respond to every single one of them. Please join me back here tomorrow on Bring Your Own Popcorn for day number 4 of the 12 Days of Christmas, where I'll be watching and reviewing The Christmas Chronicles. Thank you for watching this video. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, turn on notifications, all that jazz, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.